The Tabletop Bellhop team is here to answer your gaming and game night questions. Tonight's question comes from Robert Cook, who just wants to know, what is your favorite deck building game?
So this one's interesting because I was looking for topics for us to talk about this episode, and I'm going through our question pile with Deanna, and we're like, what do we want to talk about? And we have decided we were going to do a game recommendation episode because the last time was kind of a philosophical one about what to do when your game night fails or your gaming event fails. And I'm like, all right, what's a good recommendation topic? And I'm going through and I'm like, oh, I got this interesting one from Robert Cook about deck building. We've covered that before. And then Deanna's like, did we cover that before? And I'm like, we must have, right? Like Sean's favorite type of game is deck building. Deanna and I love deck building. We play deck building games. We must have talked about it. So then I pull up the Googles and I go to our YouTube channel and I log into YouTube and I search all our videos. And I'm like, yes, we've talked about a lot of deck building games, but we've never specifically had an episode on one of our favorite game mechanisms, which was just kind of shocking. So the answer was no, we hadn't covered this before. And then I'm like, all right, cool. So let's do it. Let's talk about deck building games.
It's kind of funny. I think that question sat there for a bit too, because you kept going past it going, we've already covered that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, it amused me. I thought we've just talked about deck builders so often that yeah.
And one of the big things I think about deck builders is, like Mo said in the intro to this episode, is the difference between deck building and deck construction.
Yes.
Which confuses a lot of people, and understandably, because they are similar. It's really about when during the game your deck is built. Are you constructing the deck in advance before the game starts, or are throughout the game you building your deck up into something as you play?
Yeah, exactly. That's the main thing we are trying to do to separate here. Now, one thing that was not in Robert's original question is he said deck building games. We are going to be talking about deck building card games. But when we're done, we do have a call out to some deck building adjacent games. These are specifically card driven deck builders. And yes, there are other games that some people consider deck builders that don't have decks. But we're just talking about, for our game recommendations, is deck building card games. And before we got to the list, what I kind of wanted to talk about just for a little bit, I don't want to spend too long on it, let's not get too off track, is why we like deck building so much. And I can think of a couple things. Off the top of my head, I love engine building games. And this is one of the most pure forms of engine building games where you generally start with crap. Your starter deck sucks, and you are trying to use it to get bigger things, to do more things, to get bigger things, to do more things, and try to set up some kind of combo. And those are my favorite kind of games overall. Like, I think my favorite worker placement games tend to be engine building games. My favorite, like 18xx train games, my favorite train games are engine building games. I love engine building games. And I find deck building, like, just does that by default. Like, that's just kind of how deck building works. They're almost like the most pure engine building games.
See, and I have such a clear memory of the first time I tried Dominion. Someone brought it out to a public play event, and I tried it, and I hated it. And I thought it was stupid. And I can't even quite put my finger on what I didn't like about it, but I did not care for it. And then after that, I kind of tried to dodge deck building games for a bit. And eventually, I think it was Ascension, brought me around. And I was like, oh, actually, this is a thing and I like it. But yeah.
I think for me, a lot of it is the fact that you can really shape your own destiny. So if you want to, depending on, whatever it is at the time, you can go in different paths, depending on what cards you choose to buy, how you choose to shape your deck. Do you want a really tight, small deck that you're going to cycle through as fast as possible? Or are you going to just bulk it up and end up with this massive, giant thing that's almost impossible to shuffle, but has all the options in it? And different and even within the same game, those strategies might both be able to work. And that's really kind of the flexibility of a deck builder that has always attracted me.
Yeah, and to use the term we like to use a lot when we're talking games, and some of the best games have player agency, right? Like, you are, like Sean said, you pretty much full control over your own destiny. I shouldn't say completely full. Dominion, you do have full control because it's a set market and everyone's stuck with the same market. But if you're playing a game with a random market or a changeable market, that's different, because sometimes you're at the vagaries of the deck, which to me is also an interesting thing.
I like the games where there is some, I don't know, like you said, the vagaries of deck. You have to go with the flow and you have to adjust as you're playing. I think that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, more tactical games, right?
I think a lot
Dominion
of
is a very strategic deck builder, whereas Ascension is a very tactical deck builder where you have to deal with what's in front of you.
And I think a lot of them really sort of depend on the actual makeup of that deck that makes up the that makes up the market to go from. If you've got enough variability and enough going on, then that can be great. But if there isn't all that much in there, I think a good instance that we didn't actually talk about tonight is Robo Rally. Robo Rally, when you're playing with the base game, it's got, a nice little bit of stuff. But as you add in those extra characters, the amount of things that you're able to do with that deck really grows, and you just get that much more flexible of a game.
See, the problem with Robo Rally is I never think of it because I play the original Richard Garfield version, which isn't a deck building game at all. That's a modern change.
Sorry, and as you say that, I don't mean Robo Rally. I mean Robot Arena, the new
Robot Quest Arena.
Robot Quest Arena. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, okay, that makes way more sense because I'm like, for one, I'm like, Sean must have read this on Board Game Geek because I don't think he's played Robo Rally.
Okay, so
the new Robo Rally is a deck builder in the fact that every robot has its own deck. And when you build power-up cards, they go in your deck. So the newest version of Robo Rally is a deck builder. But I like the original where everyone was drawing out the same deck and it was more programming, but then the games took forever. And we're not here to just talk about Robo Rally.
He said Robo Rally, and I was thinking Robot Quest Arena. And I was yeah.
You guys were on the same page. I was off in reality. The other thing, too, is it's cards. Cards are just so versatile. Cards are just so awesome as a tool to play games with, right? Decks and hands and everything that goes with cards is awesome. We love card games. We love collectible card games. We love living card games. We like deck building games. We like traditional card games. We like trick takers, all of that. There's something about cards as a randomization mechanic and the way you manage a hand, and deck building did something new when it was introduced with Star Realms. I'm like, here is a game where you are going to sit there. Star Realms, I said, StarCraft, sorry. You're going to sit here and cycle your hand. You're going to start off with only 10 cards. You're going to draw 5. You're probably going to buy a new card. Then you're going to pick up your other cards and you buy something else and you shuffle everything. And the only thing that I got to say is bad about deck builders is, man, all that shuffling is rough on your cards.
I think I would say it's funny, actually.
Star Realms.
It's funny, actually, just this week on Threads, a certain board game cafe in Toronto posted the question, if you had to choose, would you play games with dice or games with cards? And I jumped in there in a heartbeat. Got to be cards. It's all about the cards.
Oh, they're so versatile, right?
Like, the only downside is when you start putting the expansions in, it's such a pain in the butt to sort them out. And with Ascension, there is some bloat there. Ascension, as an example, with so many expansions, right?
Yeah.
And then we always talk about that one epically bad experience we had with Ascension when the one fellow showed up and it brought all the Ascension, literally dumped it into like a giant cardboard box and shook it up to generate a random deck for us to play from. And that was awful. I'm like, don't do that.
And Ascension was weird because it was actually released in waves, and you were only supposed to play with like the 2 most recent core sets and the 2 small box expansions for them, or else the game kind of broke because like one would add events. And with that, and its first thing, it was awesome. Like every few cards, you got an event, and events were neat. But as soon as you threw it in with the original game, the events just didn't come up enough. And then there were all these cards tied to events that were underpowered because you didn't draw the events enough. And then if you threw in a third deck, it was like you played 6 games in a row and not even see an event. And it was rough with Ascension. And to be honest, I no longer own Ascension because of that. When it got there, now I regret it. I wish I had kept at least the base set. So anything else we like about deck builders before we move on to some recommendations?
I think we're going to see a rise in card games with what's going on in the board game industry and pricing. So we may see more deck building going on because cards are cheaper
that's a
to
good
print.
point. Deck builders are cheap to produce compared to many other board games. Depending on your game, Eminent Domain comes with all kinds of plastic little spaceships, but like your average deck builder tends to be just a deck of cards and then maybe some counters. And then some things like the latest versions of Star Realms even got rid of the counters. You're using cards to track things. So, all right.
Yeah, I think we can go on.
So on to actual game recommendations. I think we're going to do what we've done in the last few game recommendation episodes, since there are 3 of us now. We're going to do 5 games each. Then we're going to check in, or we're going to have some honorable mentions. Then we're going to check in with the lobby. That's our chat room here on Twitch, see if they have anything to add. And I already see stuff sitting in the chat room right now. So we will get to those, and please chat, keep it coming. If you could, please use hashtag ask those so that we do catch it, just in case things start getting spammy in there.
As usual, this list is in no particular order.
All right, the first game on my list is one of my favorite deck builders of all time, one I need to play more often. I don't get this to the table as often as I should for a game I enjoy that much as I do, and that's Tyrants of the Underdark. This is a deck building war game mashup, area majority war game set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe of the Forgotten Realms, specifically the Underdark, which deals with the Drow, or if you prefer Drow, elves. It is a fascinating game because it features all your usual deck building stuff, but also has a way you can promote cards to remove them for your deck where they're worth more points, which is also a feature of another game Sean will be mentioning later, as well as using your cards to manipulate a board, which is something that will come up in a couple other games, including our next one. I thought it was just fascinating the way it mashed up those two mechanics. Now, I have the original printing of this with all the plastic components, and I absolutely adore it. There is a newer printing out that removed all the plastic, replaced with cardboard, which kind of sucks, but it's a lower price point, and it actually comes with the expansion, which gives you new decks, which I don't actually have. So I strongly recommend Tyrants of the Underdark, one of my favorite board game deck building game mashups that still really feels like a deck building game.
Now, for my first one, it's actually not my favorite, but it's one that I wish we could play more often. It's one of those games where we just have not, because of various obligations, time, scheduling, etc., have not gotten to the table enough, and that is Dune Imperium. Now, Dune, you think, well, that's just armies and, it's a worker placement game. And yes, it is a worker placement game, but on top of that, because it was created by the folks who made Clank, this is also a deck builder game. That's where your hidden information and your intrigue and spying and controlling the powers that be are all done with cards. And that really kind of fits the theme of Dune so very well, because yes, there are the people and the pawns and the sands of the deserts, but and the power of the desert, but there's also all this other stuff going on, and the deck builder represents that so very well.
And I'm with Sean. We need to play this one more often. And no, we have not played the re-release, the updated version that came out when the second movie came out. So we can't compare it, and nor have we tried any expansion. So it is one I would like to hit the table. I have enjoyed every play I've played of it, but it hasn't gotten to be my favorite because I haven't played it enough to fall in love. It is a game that definitely rewards some system mastery, and I think that's what we're missing there.
I'm going with Star Realms for my first pick. Like, this game to me is the first thing that pops in my head when I think deck builder. It's a classic. You got your shared market in the center of the table. You play all your cards for credits. You play all your cards either for credits to buy more cards or attack power to shoot at your opponents or destroy their bases and outposts. I never get sick of this game. I was playing it yesterday with Mo when we were out for our wedding anniversary, and we were playing the app while we were sitting at a pub. The app version is fantastic, and there are tons of expansions available, including some that even add like campaign elements and cooperative modes, like some unique stuff going on. Can't go wrong with Star Realms.
Yeah, huge fan. We've said enough about Star Realms, I think, over multiple episodes. That's one of the ones where I'm like, we must have talked about the Star deck building. Come on, Star Realms. Check our most recent review of Star Realms Frontiers. We've also reviewed Tyrants of the Underdark. We have not reviewed Dune Imperium. The next one, honestly, was my favorite deck builder for a very long time, and it is faded from glory for me because it takes too long to play a full game. It's a little too involved. You're looking at an epic, Twilight Imperium. Well, no, okay, not Twilight Imperium. Eclipse level of sci-fi adventure in core worlds, specifically with the Galactic Orders expansion. To me, that's one of those people who often say that the expansion should have been in the base box. This is the one game I 100% agree, especially because the game rules were like, oh, this icon's for a future expansion, and these rules are a future expansion. And I'm like, just give me the expansion. Put it this way, the Galactic Orders box is the one you're supposed to keep because it won't fit in the base game, but the base game fits in the Galactic Orders box. There are other expansions after. Those aren't, they're neat. They're nice to have. Now, this is a game about you being a, what do you want to call it? Raiding force, Star Force, possibly the rebels, being outdistant in the galaxy and moving closer and closer to try to conquer the core worlds, which in the base game, I think there were 8 different core worlds. And it just has one of the biggest engine building feels of any deck builder I think I've ever played, because it doesn't just have one deck with cards that cost, say, 2 to 8, and you can't afford the 8s right away. you are going through multiple decks as you get closer to the galactic center, and everything ramps up. So yes, stuff's cheap at the beginning and fairly weak, and it gets bigger, but that's for everyone. And I find this one just has the best ramp up and the best feeling of I built something by the end. And it also has a really neat mechanic where your military units stay in play until they're used to do something, which is really unique compared to any other deck builder I've had. So it's kind of like a deck builder with a tableau builder, but then once you fight a battle, all those units end up back in your deck. So really neat game, still one of my favorites, but just a little too long and epic for the average game night. Like I almost have to have everyone come over and play Core Worlds tonight game night to get that one played.
1, I love Core Worlds. 2, let's play it again. 3, there's no way that's as long as it is to play Eclipse. We have to side by each compare. I think we could squeak through a Core Worlds game quicker than Eclipse.
I don't know. I think it's about 3 hours for both, for people who know the game.
All right. I definitely love Core Worlds, but again, I've only played it a couple of times because of that time commitment. On the other hand, though, if you want something a little quicker, you can get into DC deck building. Now, unfortunately, you're going to end up spending a lot of money, if not time, if you get into DC deck building, because there is a lot of content out there for it. In the past, and I think at this point, I still recommend the Teen Titans base set as a great way to start the game, but you also just won't go wrong if you get the DC deck building base set itself. It's a fantastic game because while it's competitive, it's not confrontational. So everyone is working towards defeating evil, and whoever defeats the most evil wins, basically. So it's a fun family game that way. I know my family in particular has really enjoyed that level of you're competing, but you're not facing off against each other. Now, there are some expansions to this, specifically the Crisis expansions, where the game is actually full cooperative, and it's you and whoever else versus the Crisis events. So that is an option as well. But in the majority of the base game and expansions, it is a competitive but not confrontational. The other really nice thing is it's not like Ascension where you're going to throw all of the cards in. You're going to pick a base set and pick an expansion and shuffle up those decks, but you're never really, well, I suppose you could. It would be a horrible experience probably to just take all of your DC deck building cards and throw them all together. And they give you recommendations on what it is and how you should build that deck.
So I know you've been a fan.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know you've been a fan for a very long time. So what is the argument, or how do you teach the game so you don't have the players that complain that, like, I'm Wonder Woman, why am I buying the Batcave?
Because you're not Wonder Woman. You are a controller. You are the guy in the chair running your team. And while you may have a prime hero who is your primary active agent in the world, you are not playing as Wonder Woman or Batman or Superman. You are guiding Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman with an assortment of other things.
Okay. Because that is the complaint I hear the most about DC deck building.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't understand it. I mean, yes, you have a character in front of you, but you're also taking all these other characters into your deck and playing them.
All right. So speaking of Ascension, that's what I went with for my second pick. It's another classic. It, as I mentioned earlier, was the first deck builder that I really enjoyed playing, and it changed my mind about the genre. It is very much a pure deck builder. Much like Star Realms, there's a fantastic digital version of this game out, and there is tons of expansion content, which can be both a boon and a bane.
Yeah, big fan of Ascension. Ascension won me over for a very long time. We played our copy of Ascension a lot. I remember once sitting at an event at Villain's Bistro and playing Ascension 3 times at once, because we were sitting at a table playing my physical copy of Ascension, and 2 phones were being passed around, one clockwise and one counterclockwise. So all of us were like meta playing Ascension, and it was because we decided to try Ascension with too many players. And it was just way too slow between turns. I think we did like an 8-player game or something based on what expansion we had.
Which was a bad idea.
And it was taking so long that I broke out my phone. And even that was taking someone else broke out their phone. And so we had 3 games of Ascension going on at once. And I will never forget that.
It's interesting. I've still never played physical Ascension. I have played Ascension, I don't even know how many times, and a ridiculously high number of times, but only digitally because, again, the game can get so unwieldy with all the different expansions and things. It's just really easy to play it as a digital game.
Now, I do have to say, most recently, I did play the physical copy of Ascension Legends. It's either Legend or Legends. I think it's Legends, and it was fantastic.
The 4th edition one you're talking about there? Ascension.
Whatever the newest expansion is.
Okay. Yeah. I want to get my hands on that and play it again and again.
Yeah, unfortunately, at some point, I decided the app was so much better, I got rid of my physical copy, and I do regret it because I do prefer playing games physically. All right, next up, when I prepped these notes, I had Legendary Encounters, an alien deck building game, but I had to pull it off because it seems to be long out of print, and we don't like recommending games people can no longer get anymore. So I did drop that one. That is a fantastic co-op version of the Legendary series that started with Legendary Marvels. I much prefer the Legendary Encounters series to the original, but that's when I'm going to drop that. I'm going to put in a last-minute substitution, and we're going to swap out creepy aliens with cute little horses with My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria. And the part that's going to blow you away is that My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria is a more complicated, harder to learn game than Alien Encounters. Because, wow, it is one of those mixed expectation games. You were expecting a game for little kids, and instead you get a deck builder with 6 different resources, a whole cooperative system that also involves moving miniatures around on a map and visiting different parts of Equestria and dealing with clouds and depression while trying to collect cubes and trade them in to complete things. It is a cooperative game that does the thing I love in cooperative games, where it's very hard to win, but it's very easy to get close to winning, which always has me coming back for more.
Yeah, we've said a lot about this game. Again, the complexity of it really shocked all of us. And really the only negative we had about this game, aside from maybe how hard it was to teach, was some of the font size. Some of the lettering on some of those cards is ridiculously tiny and unreadable. But once you figure it out,
I don't know if that was improved in future sets. I'm not sure. I know more sets have come out and second printings that may have gotten better. We have not kept up with the game, I will admit. All
right. So next up, I've got Clank. From the makers of Dune Imperium, Clank, a deck building adventure. So I just actually recently re-engaged with this game by picking up the Steam app. Again, because I haven't been playing a lot. Digital is great. And it's another really great digital implementation. But I also do play this one physically, particularly with my kids and family. Mm-hmm. And it's just great because of, again, the variety of options you get. There's so many different ways you can choose to go about playing this game, whether you want to start hacking and slashing monsters for points, or if you want to try and, up your movement so you can dash in as deep as possible and get back out again. It's a great deck building game, that there, while some people definitely lose, it's not head to head competitive, and makes for a fun experience. As long as everyone gets out of the dungeon and no one gets trapped.
Though I do like you only have to get so high up and at least you get a statue. If everyone can make it over the line, not everyone's got to make it out. As long as everyone makes it over the line.
I did love in the Steam version that the villagers come down and drag you out if you make it above the
Oh, that's awesome.
Line. That's great.
That is awesome. Yeah, I'm with Sean. The Clank is fantastic. I love the small box. I don't know the small box, what you want to call them. The map expansions that just add like a few new cards or a new system, or the one that has like underwater where you have to get the scuba deer to dive deep enough. I do like those. And I have heard absolutely fantastic things about Clank Legacy. And I should have got in on that when it was readily available, because I think the three of us would have loved playing through that. That was a miss on ours. Clank in Space is also very neat because it has a variable board. There's the newer version of Clank. You literally build the dungeon as you're playing or something like that. I don't know. Clank, the whole series is awesome.
Not playing Clank Legacy is one of my biggest board game regrets.
Yeah, I agree.
So I've got Lost Ruins of Arnak. I mean, I love this game. I'm pretty sure you are all familiar with Arnak. But it's basically a hybrid deck builder, right? Like, it's the typical you start with a small deck and you use cards to buy more cards thing, but then there's also worker placement, and you got your dudes out on the board exploring ruins and climbing the big temple, and it is just one of my favorite games, and it is fun.
What I love in Lost Ruins of Arnak, and just listen to our review where we can go on about this a lot, is it's an action economy game, and it's a puzzle, and every turn is a puzzle to get the most out of what cards you have in your hand.
Trying to squeak it out.
Yeah, let's squeak it out. Like Arnak's the awesome game where you're like, okay, I'm going to use one card to go to this campsite to get this thing. so that I can now use this card to go explore this area. Okay, when I explore that area, that's going to give me this thing that lets me go up on the temple. And then when I go up on the temple, I'm going to use this card to buy this artifact. And when you buy artifacts, you get to use them right away. And I'm going to use that artifact to kill the monster at that site. And then I'm going to flip that monster to, like, those are the awesome, amazing
I love
cards.
it. I love that feeling. And apparently I suck at it because I never win at Arnak, but I always want to go back and play again.
Yeah, Arnak's one of the ones I tend to win off and on for some reason. That is maybe that's another reason I like it so much. All right, next one is one Sean messed up the name earlier. That's Robot Quest Arena from our friends at Wise Wizard Games. We probably should have been calling out the publisher on each of these. Lost Ruins Arnak CGE, and I don't know the DC Deck Builders. Who's that, Sean? Cryptozoic?
Yes.
Okay.
Cryptozoic.
And then Star Realms is Wise Wizards, and Ascension is Stone Blade Entertainment, something like that.
Clank, I can't remember.
Dune Imperium is Direwolf.
Direwolf?
And Clank is...
I'm blanking on Clank.
Direwolf, Renegade.
Also Direwolf, okay. Direwolf with Renegade. Okay. Robot Quest, where you know, Wise Wizard. Actually, I think it's under their Wacky Wizard brand, but same deal. Amazing. It's Pokemon battles with robots. It's you pick a team of a little kid and a robot and you throw it in an arena, and it is Looney Tunes kind of crazy back and forth. Player elimination is robot elimination is a huge thing, but it really doesn't matter because you just pop back in the next turn and bullets are flying and things are getting punched and people are pushing people into pits, all using deck building. This is like Sean alluded to Robo Rally. This is kind of what a lot of people wanted Robo Rally to be. This is not a complex thinky game where you have to plan multiple turns ahead and perfectly plan your move so you don't get bumped the wrong way. This is chaotic, jump, move, punch, do damage, collect things, collect shields with amazing components. Like the robots in here remind me of the Nintendo Amiibos or the Skylanders stuff. Like they're that colored plastic, big, chunky. You could throw them across a room and maybe you might lose an antenna, but they're going to be in good shape. And the deck building's fantastic. It's all about buying more energy to do more things, or buying weapons to hit the other players, or buying shields to protect yourself. I'm throwing in some things from some of the expansions here. Technically, the base game doesn't come with shields. There's various different pieces of terrain, and you can customize the board. This one, to me, I don't see anyone else talking about it. I'm wondering if this one's more of a hidden gem, but we adore it. It is one of the games that if we set this up at a public play event, someone will play it. It worked at the Summoning. It works at our Walkerville game nights. Every game night we have, if we set this up, we should have set it up at Sakura, probably would have got played.
I think one of the great things I love about this, and we don't talk about it enough, is actually the theme and the way the theme interacts. And the reason for this game is actually kids in a junkyard building their robots. The deck building comes from looting through the junk and finding and picking up things that, and digging for batteries. And it just, the theme works so very well with this game. I mean, you don't need it. You don't need to think about it. But when you do, it all just comes together so well and makes the game just that little bit better than the abstract robot, Robo Wars or sort of game, like the TV show when it's these kids. And part of the reason why that you don't have player elimination, you've got robot elimination, is because, oh shoot, my robot blew up. I'm just going to slap it back together and throw it back in there and see what happens. All right. So next up, I've got DC deck building, but a different one. So in the last Kickstarter I backed, and I think there has actually been one Kickstarter since then. I'm not caught up on all the DC deck building.
Oh no,
it got so expensive. But I did manage to get a hold of the DC deck building Injustice. Now, Injustice, for those who follow the video games, is a head-to-head battler in the Injustice world, the evil Superman, blah blah blah, all the wonderful lore around it. But realistically, it's a head-to-head superhero versus superhero battler game. And this brings that to the table. So this is a PvP confrontational deck building game, which is even brought in some fun things from the video game, like a power bar. So you charge up your power bar so you can do your big heavy moves. If you like that aspect, this is where you want to go. If you don't care about the non-confrontational deck builders, you can skip the other DC deck builders and come straight to Injustice, where it's you versus others. And it doesn't have to be 1v1. You can actually do multi. So I've done, me and the kids, the three player works, 4 player works. I believe you can go up to 5 if, so multiplayer works. You just have to choose who you're hitting, which can always be a fun decision, especially when I'm playing versus my kids.
Now, the one thing I wonder with how much this has changed up with power bars and everything else, is it compatible with everything else, DC?
No, this is its own game. Okay. You can probably manage to work some things in if you really fought for it, but no, this is a standalone DC deck builder game.
Which is why he was allowed to put it as a separate entry. So I've got another one where theme matters. It's Cowboy Bebop Space Serenade from Japanime Games, based on the anime, and you're playing as the main characters from Cowboy Bebop. It's almost cooperative, sort of, and that you need to work together to take down bounties, but then in the end, you want to be the one who wins, collects the most bounties, and ideally takes out the main baddie. The theme is super tight. It is so well integrated, and the deck building parts of this game are just fun. Like, there's just something so enjoyable about it.
And it does some of the neat matching up board games with deck building as well, because there's multiple planets you can travel to, and you have to spend fuel to do that. And then there's some interesting things where it's got kind of the Star Realms combo thing going on, but it has to do with collecting characters of the same type. And the different colors of the cards actually represent the different characters, and it represents them helping you as you're playing your main character, right? So you might be Jet Black, but you might want to collect a few, other cards so that you can be able to use them. And then there's a combo system that goes off. And it's got what I love about it is it feels like you're working together until you're not, which just fits that anime
but it
so well.
Also, the deck scales really well. There's that sense of building up is with those combos is really,
And it is one of the deck builders, very few where you're allowed to carry over stuff between turns. And that's a mechanic that we're seeing more and more of in modern deck builders that I really like, where you can kind of carry over some of your stuff between turns. All right, my next one is Star Wars, the deck building game. At this point, the original series version, because there is now a Clone Wars version. I have not tried the Clone Wars version, but the reviews are disconcerting. It's ranked significantly lower than the original, and I'm not sure why. I can't talk to that. What I will talk to is someone took Star Realms and rethemed it to be Star Wars. Like, it's got everything you like about Star Realms, with the system, with the variable market in the middle, different types of cards you can collect, which are characters, or you can get bases. But the bases in this case are ships, and ships stay in play, kind of like the bases. But there's some neat stuff where you can only draft or buy cards of your faction, or if they're scum and villainy. So it's Empire versus Rebels. Well, the Rebel can only buy Rebels, or they can buy scum cards. But then what you can do is you can attack the opponent's cards in the market. And I love that. There's a way to remove the cards so that your opponents can't get them by attacking them. Then there's also a really neat system for the Force, where various characters, when you play them, adjust the Force towards your side, or the dark side or the good side, and that gives you additional amounts to be able to buy stuff if the Force is on your side. And then some cards are like, if the Force is on your side, do something awesome, like Luke and Vader have abilities like that. If you're a fan of Star Wars and you're a fan of Star Realms, just get this game. And I'm a fan of both. So like, for me, this was like a no-brainer. One thing they haven't done is really expand on it, because the second expansion is Clone Wars. And if you're a purist, you're not going to want to mix those decks, because then you get weird things like Luke Skywalker fighting battle droids, or, General Grievous coming up against Han Solo, which is just kind of weird if you're a fan of canon. I keep hoping they'll put out more. I just want small deck expansions. Give me something like Star Realms has done. Give me Gambit packs. Give me little packs that I can add to my Star Wars deck building game, because I really do enjoy it. And no, one side is not more powerful than the others. For every 100 people arguing that the Empire wins all the time, go on Reddit, you'll find 100 people arguing the Rebels have an advantage. They are very well balanced once you have 2 experienced players. There's some system mastery who get to know the decks. People tend to forget that you can kill the cards in the market row before your opponent buys them, and I think that's a big part of the game balance in this game.
Well, next up, I've got something that I just finally got to play for the first time, and still think it belongs on this list. And that is Tanto Cuore. Now, this is really, it should be the Dominion killer. The problem is, it is a bunch of Japanese maids. So Japanime Games has put out Tanto Cuore, and they have put out a ton of expansions. This game has been out now for, 15, 16 years.
Something like that,
with
yeah.
a lot of expansion content, but it is a game about Japanese made culture and Japanese made services. And so the visual aspect of the game could be problematic in some areas. And, you know, it's not necessarily what you want to go play with your grandparents at the coffee shop, on Sunday. But that being said, the combination of a set market as well as variable market, and then adding to that the tableau building aspects of chambermaids just makes for an extra experience over and above what you get with Dominion that makes it a really enjoyable experience if you can get yourself past any problems you might have with the theming. And really, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a sexually explicit game in any way.
No.
It's just
it's
Japanese
PG rated
maids.
at best. Like it's yeah.
And what I'll do just to cut off that discussion, go read our review, because I put a whole section at the top that links to a couple of articles that explains Japanese made culture and what it is.
Yep.
It's a thing.
Yep.
I'm super excited that Sean finally played this one because I knew he was going to love it.
Yeah.
And I had no clue it was that old. I thought it was like maybe about 5 years old.
No, 1 year after Dominion.
Wow.
1 year after Dominion. Came out in 2009. Dominion came out in 2008. Like it really is a follow-up to Dominion. And it feels like a follow-up
it felt
to
like
Dominion.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. It very much feels like a follow-up to Dominion. I'm just surprised they didn't do re-themes. Like there's a game called Barbarossa, which is about a war where it's tanks battling tanks. And when they first put it out, all the tanks were turned into anime chicks. And it was very popular, but some people complained. So then they put out the tank version of Barbarossa. And I'm just kind of surprised they never put out I don't know what the re-theme would be, but not a non-made Tanto Cuore. I was kind of surprised that never actually happened because it's a solid game. I agree.
Right. I got one that's a little off the beaten path. I'm going with Concordia. And it's a game about economic development in peaceful ancient Rome. It's probably not the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking deck builders, right? But deck building is one of the main mechanics. Players all start with an identical deck of cards, and the cards allow access to specific actions. And as your cards get played, your number of actions is going to dwindle. And then one of the actions allows you to draft more cards into your deck. So there's your deck building. And then there's another action that allows you to pick up all your cards and reshuffle. So yeah, deck builder, right? And this is the clever twist to my mind. There's the end game scoring, which is based on the cards that you've managed to collect throughout the game. Like if you've got a whole bunch of various god cards. So if you've collected a whole bunch of Mercury, then that means that you're going to score more for whichever goods scores for Mercury. I don't remember. You know, it's been a while.
It's total collected goods.
Yep.
Concordia is amazing. I don't think Sean's played this one yet, and that's another one, man, we need to play again. Like Concordia is up there in like my top 10 games.
I may have tried it on one of the digital services when we were exploring different digital services.
Oh, okay.
But no, I've never played the physical.
Yeah, fantastic game. And honestly, the whole concept of the cards you collect are your actions, but they're also your end game scoring is such a big deal that when you teach people the game actually recommends you play through one cycle. I can't remember if it's a year or an era. You play through one cycle and stop and score the game then, just so everyone gets the concept before you continue the game. And it's weird because like the full game, you don't do that. You don't calculate your score until the end. So you actually get more points in your learning game than you will in a full game because of that extra scoring round. But honestly, it's so required because people just don't get it. No matter how, like as a teacher, I've taught the game many times, no matter how much I try to stress how important it is collecting the things you want to score, they don't quite get it. And they buy them based on, well, I like trading, so I'm going to buy lots of trading people. And I'm like, yeah, but the same trading person might score a different god at the end. So watch what trader you're buying and stuff. It's a fantastic game. There are multiple expansions. There's additional maps. It's a heavy euro, and I love that we're able to put a heavy euro on this list, honestly, because I think one of the things I tried to do, at least when I was picking my games, is kind of show the breadth of different things you can do with the same mechanic of deck building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we check in with the chat, which is if you got any more recommendations, we do have a bunch over there already, which is awesome. I do have a few honorable mentions, or we do have a few honorable mentions. The first is going to be StarCraft, the board game, because this was the first game ever to use deck building as a mechanic. Yes, this was released before Dominion. You hear a lot of people calling Dominion the godfather of deck building. Well, Dominion might have made it famous, it wasn't actually the first. This is a fantastic older Fantasy Flight back when they put out massive, huge games in what people called coffin boxes, because you could bury a small child in one of them. This was a great recreation of the board game, the real-time strategy game StarCraft, that used deck building along with a very cool action selection mechanic of placing stacks to do things that ended up evolving and becoming the system Forbidden Stars, which also still uses the deck building. The problem is, this would be on my list of 5 easily because it's a fantastic game, but that wouldn't be fair because there is no reasonable way to get this game unless you win a lottery or go to an estate sale and some gamer passes it down to you. Your parents had a copy and they're going to hand it to you when they pass away because that's the way you're going to get it. Yes, I do have a copy. Mine's behind me right there. You can kind of see over my shoulder. And yes, I do have the Brood War expansion as well, but that's not up on the shelf.
No, you cannot have it. No, you cannot have it.
Exactly. No, you can't have it. We need to sit down and play this with Sean because Sean loves sci-fi games.
Yeah, Sean would dig it.
Deck building.
All right. So next up, I've got Revive. So we've only played this game once so far, but I loved it. I wanted to include something newer in the list. And again, something where deck building is only one of the mechanics in place. So I want to sneak this in as an honorable mention. And again, it's another one that's on the heavier side. It's a mashup of 4X style exploration, expansion, and exploitation with some deck building, lots of asymmetry, tech trees, resource management, and honestly, there's more. There's a 5-scenario campaign arc in the box that adds new rules to the game after each play. So you're basically unlocking the full rule set, which again is why it's an honorable mention as I haven't played through to the end, but that first taste was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I enjoyed this game. This was a neat post-apocalyptic deck building. In this one again is kind of on the weird side where you have your characters give you multi-use cards that you're deck building, and you don't get a lot. So this is more on the Lost Ruins of Arnak amount of deck building compared to some of the other games on the list. But yeah, we need to play that one more. We haven't played since we were on vacation up north. It's one of those games. Last summer. But we need the same group of people to sit down and play. And that's been difficult getting that group together again. All right. Next honorable mention is a game we played the heck out of and talked a lot about on the show. But unfortunately, it comes from Tasty Minstrel Games, and rest in peace, Tasty Minstrel. Many of their games have been picked up by other publishers and are coming back out, which is awesome to see. But so far, no one has picked up Eminent Domain. You will probably remember, if you're a longtime fan of the show, us going through the base game, the first expansion, the second expansion, the third expansion, and we brought them all home from Origins one year and slowly worked our way through. And there was a journey. This is unique. This is different. It's a deck builder where when you take an action, you take a card representing that action. So the more you take the action, the more cards you get of it, which makes that action better. But then eventually your deck's bloated with actions you don't need to take anymore. That was kind of the gist of the original game. And yeah, there was a little bit more to it than that. But then the first expansion came out and there was different ways to capture planets. You could do it just by colonizing, or you could capture them. Well, the first expansion made it so that the capture mode, the combat system, was more involved. And then the next expansion added more resources and more tech cards. And well, the tech cards were another way to modify your deck. So one of your actions you could take was to get tech cards. Well, every expansion added more tech cards, and the game shifted to be more about what tech card combos you were trying to make. And at that point, I thought the game was amazing. It was one of the best deck builders I ever played. And then there was another expansion that came out after that. Maybe this is the one that added more resources, but then now it started to feel bloated. And there was a tech tree for this game that you could fold out, and I wanted to hang it on the wall while you were playing, because now it was so frustrating to figure out where the cards were. And it was one of those like, oh God, someone took the technology action. All right. You hand them the decks of cards as they look through. So like, it was just so interesting. Like, oh man, it was just such a unique game from the start, and to watch the game evolve. So I had to put that on my list. I know multiple different people that like this game at different points. Like I know at least one person who will only ever play the base game. I know someone else who only play with the first expansion. I know someone else who only play with it all in. And they all think those are the best moves. And I got to call this game out just for the amount of joy. I can't remember what year we were going through all this. I'm going to guess around 2018, probably when we first started up. maybe 2019, we were going through all of it was probably after the 2019 Origins, we brought all this home and we're going through it.
CD-ROM was still at their old location. That's, it was pre-pandemic. So
yeah, if you're at all curious, I have no idea if you'd be able to find this game on the market. It never was that popular, so Noble Knight probably has reasonably priced copies.
All right, well, finally, I am going to call out Chiseled. This is from our former sponsor, Grand Gamers Guild, and this, unlike our other games, is a deck deconstruction game. So you're not building your deck, you're tearing it down. So it flips everything that we've been talking about around. You start with this massive deck of cards that represents an untouched virgin block of stone, and you are going to use tools each turn to slowly chip away at this block of stone that is your deck until you are left with nothing but a masterpiece of artwork. You're trying to get rid of the waste while keeping body parts representing how much work and how much time has been spent on each of these body parts in the scoring at the end. This is a fantastic game and a fantastic twist on the concept of deck building. It's this deck building in reverse that we have all really loved. The moment this game finally clicked for me was when I chose the one tool that had me keep chipping away over and over and over
chainsaw
and over again,
like
the chainsaw, and the feeling the tension in the game as you're essentially putting this chainsaw to the stone and watching chunks of it fall off over and over again and not knowing if you're going to be able to pull yourself back in time before you chop off an arm or something. It's a great game. Check out our review for more information. And if it sounds great, go pick up a copy at grandgamersguild.com, where for the month of May, ending May 2025, you can get 10% off using code BELLHOP, BELLHOP.
Yeah, so you were describing that when you said slowly chip away. All I could think of was the chainsaw moment. And I kind of wanted to interrupt and say, sometimes slowly chip away.
I remember the first time you played, it was not slowly. Yes. Yeah. I love that game. I love that you thought of that game. That was not even in my mental list at all. That's a good call.
All right. Well, we're going to check in with our lobby now and see what they're talking about. We got Ryan, who brought in StarCraft before we managed to mention it, but also at the same time mentioned Mage Knight as a board game with deck building.
Yeah, that's another one. That's considered by many people to be the most involved, most fun solo game out there, though you can play multiplayer. We played Mage Knight a couple times, Deanna and I just had the original game without the expansions. That's a sandbox game. There are not a lot of sandbox games out on the market where you're like, here's a map, go explore. And when you find the tower, you roll a random dice to find out what the tower is. There are set scenarios as well, but it used deck building as one of its main mechanics with a resource system of these like powered, colorful crystals. Neat game, neat mechanics using deck building to like represent the powers of your character, your abilities, and like your spells and your attacks. And you would go into town and buy new cards. Very unique version of it. Definitely enjoyed the game, but that was another meaty one. Like that was a game where most people who enjoy the game have a Mage Knight area of their house where they leave the game set up. And they go and they play a couple turns or play for the evening and then just leave it there and go back to it the next day. So it's definitely for a certain type of gamers. That one was recently updated with an Ultimate Edition, which I admit I was very tempted by. But again, it was better as a solo experience than it was two players. So that's the main reason we did avoid it. There was also a Star Trek version of that game, which we have not tried. And that's a different name. I think it's Frontiers. Very, I don't know. I assume you're like flying the Enterprise around the galaxy. From what I understand, it's more of a re-theme than a totally new game, but I have not played that one to talk about it.
And yes, it is Star Trek Frontiers is the name of the re-implementation. Yeah. Next up, he mentions, he asks, Couriers, deck building with dice? ?
So we're going to talk about that in a bit. So one of the last things we're going to do once we're done checking with the chat, it's in my next segment actually, is to talk about deck building adjacent games. So Couriers is a bag building game, a dice pool collecting game that actually does use cards. But the cards in that game are set at the start of the game, and the cards just represent what each die means. So the dice are your units, but the card tells you what that is. You never shuffle the cards. You're never drawing cards. You're buying dice. But again, I'm going to call those out as, I don't know, not even an honorable mention, but we were sticking specifically to deck building card games tonight. because if we opened it up, it might have been a very different list.
Well, his next one definitely is, and that is Flip City.
Yes. To me, that did not belong on my top 5. Flip City was a game I thought was neat the first time I played. The interesting thing on that game is your deck is 2-sided, and there are ways to upgrade all your cards. And when you upgrade them, you flip them, which was just a unique mechanic. It was a city building game, kind of Sim City in card format. I thought the concept was neat. The mechanics were neat, but was never wowed by any plays. Like I played and I'm like, I did a thing that was neat. Played again, said did a thing that was neat. Waited, I don't know how long. Some time period went by before I played again. And it was a game I looked at and went, you know what? I'm bringing this out tonight to the CG realm. We're going to play tonight, and I'm either getting rid of the game or we're keeping it. And we played one more time. And again, I'm like, yeah, it's a neat mechanic, but I wish they did more with it. And we ended up getting rid of it. And yes, I did pick up the reuse mechanic. There was an expansion that supposedly fixed the game. The game was better with the mechanic, but it just, compared to all these other deck builders I've already talked about, Flip City just wasn't enough for me. I do know people do still enjoy it. I'm not trying to bash the game. And I still think the mechanic of flipping cards is really neat as a way to upgrade your cards. I think that's a really neat mechanic.
This one hasn't actually held up well. It has tanked in the rankings as well. So I think a lot of people have sort of put it as it's a fun game, but it's not great. And that's sort of where it's sitting in the rankings.
Plus, if I remember, that's also Tasty Minstrel Games and currently no longer in print with them closing. And I don't think anyone's ever picked that one up either.
There's no new version since 2020. So
yeah.
Next up, he mentions in passing, Libraries, the TV show, has a deck builder. No, it doesn't. It's Librarians, the adventure card game. It's a deck construction game, not a deck builder.
If we were talking about adventure card games, we'd be talking about Adventuria. Adventuria is not a deck building game. Now, I did come very close to putting the Pathfinder adventure card game on this list, but it's so little cards are added to your deck. So you have your deck, you go do the thing, and at the end of the mission, you get treasure cards that do get added to your deck. But like every game, you're going to add 1, maybe 2. By the end of the campaign, you might have added 5 cards to your deck. Where Adventuria, I'm not calling it deck building because it's similar. You finish your adventure, you get a treasure, but you have to swap out cards. So that's pure deck construction. You're not actually adding anything to your deck. You're increasing your options when building your deck, but you're actually having to flip them out. So I strongly considered the Pathfinder adventure card game series because that did have rewards you add to your deck. But for the types of games we were talking about, it felt like it didn't fit with everything else we were sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next thing he mentions is the Star Trek themed Star Realms, which is Star Trek Star Realms. This is out. This is available from UVS Games in cooperation with Wise Wizard Games. UVS has the license for Star Trek.
The answer is, oh, heck yes. I can't wait to play this.
Yeah, we saw it at Gamma Expo. We talked to the people who published it. It was only prototype when we were there. If I remember correctly, that was one of many publishers who said, are you going to Gen Con? And we're like, no, sorry. Very curious. From what I do understand, though, as far as I know, it's a card for card, like a retheme that you're not getting anything new if you played Star Realms. Like it's the original Star Realms deck with Star Trek cards, but I'm not positive on that. So don't quote me on it. But that was my understanding. Yes, I want it. More interestingly, there's a new one called Star Trek Captain's Chair. I am actually much more interested in that because it's not just rethemed. It's a new deck building game.
Yeah, Star Trek Star Realms is just Romulan, Starfleet, Klingon, Dominion instead of traders and Blob, etc., etc.
Yeah,
maybe it'll get some new people to come over and check out Star Realms, which is arguably one of the best deck builders out there. So
if you are interested, there are also Hero Realms and Cthulhu Realms out there.
Yeah, the one I'm most interested, this just came out. People are just getting copies. One of the local game stores got a copy last week and invited me out to try it out. And I had to shut them down because they wanted to do it on a Monday. It is a 1 to 2 player game, cooperative deck building game called Star Trek Captain's Chair, where you get to play Picard, or you get to play Benjamin Sisko, or you get to play Koloth, the Daha Master. I am super curious about that game.
Yeah.
That looks fantastic. But haven't gotten to play it. Technically just came out a week ago. Like literally just hit game stores a week ago. All right. Are we good from the chat? Nothing else from them? Thank you, Ryan, and everyone else who chose to participate tonight. That is fantastic. I love it when you folk take part. Now, I'm going to get to what I said I was going to get to. I do want to give a shout out and call out some of my favorite deck building adjacent games. These are games that have similar mechanics where you're building up something, may not be a hand of cards. So Orleans. Orleans is one of my favorite games of all time. That is a bag builder, and it's unique because it's a very almost first player, single player solitaire game, which is very different from all the bag builders the deck builders we're talking about tonight. You are kind of doing your own thing, except for some spots on a central board. Another example of a bag builder I love is originally the Quacks of Quedlinburg. That has now been rethemed and re-released as just Quacks. That is another one, which is still, to my knowledge, the best push your luck game on the market. The Flip 7 might argue for some people to be better, but for me, it's got enough depth to it. Love Quacks. Roll for the Galaxy is a dice pool builder based on the Race for the Galaxy engine, where you're collecting more dice to make your actions more powerful. And then similar, Kapow is a dice pool builder, but also has customizable dice. So not only are you collecting new dice types, you're collecting sides for your dice. Now, there's no decks in these games, but honestly, they kind of feel the same, right? They get those same feelings. They give you that feeling of engine building, of player agency, of variability and randomness that you generally only get from cards while you're getting it from other sources. And honestly, if I didn't want to be so pedantic and say we're talking card-based deck builders only, some of those would have been in my top 5. Orleans, for sure, would have replaced something above.
I feel like deck builders had to exist for someone to get inspired to do the bag builder thing.
Yes.
Like that, right? So they're definitely like the same, maybe an offshoot on the same tree.
Yeah, it would be interesting, and I'm sure someone already has someone who's interested in researching the history and path of board games, but looking at the evolution of certain mechanics like deck building, bag building, dice building, etc., and looking at those, sort of first games that brought out the idea that have since been built on and expanded upon, for the fact that everyone says Dominion is the first, whereas we know StarCraft was doing deck building before Dominion was.
So what you want?
That's a research project. Don't send us that question.
No, it's already been done. So the book you want is The Building Blocks of Tabletop Game Design, an Encyclopedia of Mechanisms by Jeff Engelstein and Isaac Shalev. It has been done extremely well with that book.
All right, well, there you have it. Some of the best deck building games ever published by some huge deck building card game fans. What are your favorite deck building games? We'd love to hear about them in the comments on social media or at the Tabletop Bellhop Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com. And now, what could be a message from our sponsor, which could be you. We're currently looking for a new sponsor or two.
Yeah, if you're looking to promote your latest game, a sale, your store's halving, your Etsy shop, or really anything tabletop game related, we want to work with you.
Any of that sounds appealing? I'm the person you want to talk to. Email me at deanna@tabletopbellhop.com for info and rates.